Hi everyone, this is Andrew Ty and welcome to my YouTube channel. In front of me here I've got a MacBook Pro 13-inch 2016 with the two Thunderbolt 3 ports, and this particular computer has got major issues with its battery. It's saying here service battery, if you can see that in the corner there, and we can see down here that we have a cycle count of 551 and the actual full charge capacity is really small compared to what it should be, and naturally we need to actually switch the battery out. So today I'm going to show you how to switch the battery out. I'm using It's Been Repaired battery guide, so please follow the link in the description if you want to follow the original guide. That guy's a real pro, he's done it all in one take. I'm going to be following along and editing this video as appropriate, and I'm going to be installing a third-party battery. So this particular battery that I have is called an ANTIEE battery. It's for this particular model, and I bought this from Amazon. I'm going to leave a link in the description for this particular battery. I think that most of the third-party batteries are roughly the same, so I'm going to be installing this today and showing you how this all works. So within the battery pack itself, we have the actual standard battery, we have this kind of special contact for this particular model, and we actually have the two screwdrivers we need. We have a pentalobe and a Torx screwdriver, so that's what we're going to be using to unscrew the MacBook, so you don't need to buy extra tools. All we need to do now is to shut down the computer and then flip the MacBook over. So I'm going to be using the pentalobe screwdriver. It's just a standard pentalobe 1.2mm, and I'm going to be taking off these screws. So just be aware that the screws are all different lengths, so try keeping them in the correct order. So these lower left corner ones are the same. And then these two center ones are slightly different. These are shorter. And then top left. Even longer. So if they were going to go in order, we'd say long, medium, and shortest. Okay. So the next stage is to actually get the actual bottom case off, because there's no actual bridge to get your fingers under, so we need a suction cup. So the tool that I'm going to use is one of my iMac screen suction cups. We just plunk it there and then pull to create suction, and then just kind of pull it out. I think it is possible to get it out other ways, like you could probably lever the screwdriver to pull the case out, but I think it's a bit safer to use a suction cup, so I'll leave a link in the description for the one I use. Any kind of device that creates suction, even like very strong duct tape, would probably work with this. So we just kind of pull this up. I use my little plastic spudger here to do this, so I'm going to pull this up, create a bit of a gap here, lever around the edges. Let's try moving this a little bit. Let's flip this around. Let's get this corner up. So it's a kind of tug in this direction once I've got the case off, and that just kind of pulls off completely. So that's the bottom case removed finally. So what we're going to be doing is taking off this sticker first. So this sticker is protecting the cabling underneath. So all we need to do is just remove this out of the way. So we'll be reusing this. You can see there's adhesives there, which we will be reusing. And then I'm going to remove this cable, which we need as it's going to be part of our battery cable. So we have to very gently remove this tape. So what I'm going to do is to peel back this part, which reveals the actual cabling there. And there's a little latch, tiny latch there, which I've just pulled up. And now I can actually pull the cable to remove it from there. And we're also going to remove it from this cable here. So there's another latch there, and then that is going to be removed. I'm just going to put this safely on the side. And then we're going to remove the trackpad cable. So I'm just going to be using the Torx screwdriver to do this. So pulling these two kind of tiny covers here. So just to kind of keep everything together, I'll tend to try and keep the screws inside. So I'm going to put this to the side with the screws, and then we are able to lift up this very delicate trackpad cable. So just be very gentle with this. Pull this up. So I'm just going to gently peel this trackpad cable from the actual battery itself. So, so as a safety precaution, what we're going to do is to remove the trackpad unit from the actual MacBook Pro. So according to it's been repaired, this is the way to go. What we're going to do is remove all of these screws down the bottom here. And it's a mixture of Torx screws and Phillips head screws. So I'm just going to go ahead and pull these apart. Screw heads are very delicate, so I'm going to use my small screwdriver. So there's two more Torx screws here, which I just missed. So these are the remaining two, so just be careful when we remove these. These are different lengths than the other ones. Just be aware. These are short ones. And then once that's completely done, that means that when I lift this screen, the trackpad's going to drop out. So just be aware of that. This cable's going to come out, and that trackpad is going to remain in place. And the advice I've received from It's Been Repaired is don't flip these over, because these little metal things will pop out. So put this in a safe place. Don't flip it over. Okay, the last part of this is basically to take off this panel here. You don't want to drop these little plastic things which were here. Just put that next to my other Phillips head screws which were occupying that space. And then here we're just going to take off this board, and this is kind of the battery contact as well. So let's get the Torx screw out here. So this Torx screw is coming out. So this sticker here is a wetness indicator, which will turn red when the actual computer suffers water damage. Now in the video, he's extracted this one and going to replace it when it's going to be used next. I can see that there's a red color underneath it too. I'm just going to try to remove this. I'm not really too bothered about this because this computer is well out of warranty. It's over 5 years out at the time of recording, but we'll attempt to salvage this sticker for later. And then we just got a standard Torx screw here as well. Okay, so the last part is this kind of contact point here. So this is what the contact looks like for most of these batteries these days. They don't have a standard connector. They have this kind of weird connection between the battery and this board. So this kind of conducts power, and this this part here is kind of attached to the actual battery itself. So we can lift this up slightly, don't bend it too much because we need that for later. And then that can now come out. So basically at this stage we're going to go through the very arduous task of removing the actual battery cells themselves. I'm going to start with my trusty spudger, see how far we get. We might pull out the butter knife as a pry tool, but let's start with this left cell first. So the main thing when actually doing this kind of work is we lever using the edge. We don't use anything too sharp because the last thing we want to do is pierce the actual cells themselves. It's very dangerous work, this, so just be aware. We're relatively... Ooh, just broke my spudger. Yeah, I'm going to need something a little bit stronger, so I'm going to use the back of my tweezers to do this pry. So basically there's adhesive stuck to the bottom of this, just like every other newly designed MacBook from kind of 2016 onwards. And there's all these adhesives at the bottom, so you don't want to pull too hard, because if you pull too hard you're going to pierce the actual battery cells themselves and you're going to start a fire. So that's a really good idea not to do too much. We can see this is prying out. Sometimes I'll use isopropyl alcohol to help with this adhesive. That would help quite a lot actually, but there's always a danger as well that the alcohol will drip onto the screen, and if it mixes with the adhesive, that's not always a good thing. Anyway, it is possible to do this without rubbing alcohol, so I'm just going to try and do this with the back of my tweezers, which is actually working pretty well. So this part's all coming out. So yeah, that wasn't actually that hard. The good thing is that there's plenty of actual space to get underneath. Let's do this other side now. Same deal, using something kind of flat and sharp. And strong, sorry, not sharp, to kind of break each of these adhesive strips and pull out. Okay, so that's just come off just like that, and then I'm going to do a similar thing here. So just be aware that there's an actual screen underneath here, so we can't do the normal kind of pry. It's kind of bent my tweezers a bit, but these are just cheapo tweezers, that's fine. You can actually use something like a butter knife as long as it's not sharp and we're making sure not to actually damage any of the cells. What we're doing really is just sliding this piece of metal down so that the adhesives break, but also making sure not to pierce any cells at the same time. Definitely don't use anything sharp or round, but this kind of setup is probably just okay. What we're really doing is breaking the adhesives. This is quite firm kind of aluminium here. So that's just coming off. I have managed to accidentally rip this, but this is just the kind of adhesive covering. It's not ripped the actual cell itself. So that's successfully removed. Now all we have to do is deal with the task of removing all these adhesives. So basically what you can do is just kind of pull these apart and it's like basically tape, and you can just kind of try to lift it as a whole piece. So at this stage it's good to use something not too sharp to pull this up. I mean, I've done this before with the kind of butter knife, and it should be fine. So we can just pull it all together once we've got that out, and just kind of rinse and repeat until we do all of it. Okay, so we've got to the stage where we've got rid of the actual adhesives and most of the kind of residue is gone. The aim is not necessarily to remove 100% of everything, but enough so that there's no actual kind of bulge, so that the battery replacement fits properly, doesn't bulge against the bottom case. So I think this kind of state is perfectly acceptable. There's still a bit of glue here, I can feel it, but it's you know, a tiny amount. So next stage is to get our actual battery replacement in. So the thing about the battery is that we need to be able to slide this contact underneath this hole here, and then it's also quite tricky to place these. So what I'd recommend that we do is just put them in first before removing the bottom adhesive, and then remove this top adhesive last, because this top adhesive is keeping everything in the correct kind of positioning, correct spacing in here. So we can put this down first, and then we can go ahead. That can bend a little bit. I'm going to take off these tabs at the bottom. Then we're going to place the actual batteries in. So we just need to make sure that it's in a kind of good position. So this is about right. So there's a little bit of a gap there, and we have the battery kind of tucked in this way rather than this way. So now I'm going to remove the tabs from here, and I'm going to place the actual battery into place. Just be very careful with this, because you want to kind of stick this right the first time if you can. So we have the alignment here with the two screws there, and we've got the batteries going down like so. These cables are all in correctly, in the correct kind of positioning here. That battery is going in like so. That looks pretty good to me. There's a little bit of give here for the cabling there. So we're going to put our Torx screws into here. This is basically the most important contact point. This one. Then we've got this contact point here. And basically this big one here. So this looks a little bit aligned to the right, so let's just try and adjust this slightly so that we get the alignment correct, because it feels like this should be slightly to the left. That looks slightly better. So I'll pull this down while I put this big screw in. And then I'll tighten these ones because that's how this board works. That feels correct to me. We should also take this backing off. Okay, it all feels nice and tight and secure. I mean, I can see this is not as aligned as it could be, but I think it will be fine. Next thing to do is to slot in the trackpad. So I'm just going to lift this slightly. Then I can slide this trackpad underneath. We're going to feed this cable through the top. And then this trackpad I'm just going to slide underneath, like so. And this is going to go into this gap like that. This cable goes into that slot here. And then we're going to reinsert all of the Torx screws into this section here. And then there's a couple of Phillips heads here and here. So let's go ahead and do that. So we had a couple of these screws going into these little black tabs that came off when I lifted this up earlier. And then we have these 4 Phillips heads. And then we have this rather delicate cable that we need to slot into here. So this kind of has this kind of reverse arrangement with this little tab here. So we need to just very gently slot this one in here. So just push that tab down as soon as we think we're secure. Let's just make sure that's nice and firmly in, and then we have this kind of separator here with this kind of tape over it, and we're just going to slot this in. Just make sure that tab's open, and then we're going to slot this one inside. So this tab can be used to pull the cable contact into the slot. Once that's in, we can just push this tab down. So once we're confident that's made full contact, we can flatten this down. Then we're going to put this little cover on top. So this is the trackpad cable cover. It's got these tiny Torx screws that go over here. Okay, good. So one of the last things we're going to do is to put this adhesive over the top of this. So this aligns with that screw hole there, and this kind of cover just goes over like that. It kind of protects this whole section. And then we're basically done. So it's a good idea to kind of test this whole setup works, and once you're confident that you're ready to go, the kind of key to putting on the bottom case is to kind of slide it in from the bottom here. So we have a kind of a gap here, and there's kind of these little metal clips that need to go in, and they need to be slid in under this section here. So we just need to put it kind of here and then kind of slide it forward so that it's flush. So it's nearly there. It's quite a tight kind of fit. I'm just going to use my suction cup to kind of push it forward a bit. It's a little bit of a gap here, but let's try and fix that by just screwing it straight in. So long ones are at the back near the hinge. See, that's not quite. It's not quite going in. As pushing all the way in until it clips, and once that's done, then we put the long screws in here near the hinge. And then once again we have the kind of medium screws on this corner here. And then the two short ones in the center. Kind of nearest the trackpad. Okay, good. So I'm going to plug this in. Oh, it's turned itself on. I've got the computer back up and running. It's very important that you check that the trackpad's working correctly. You can kind of hear that it's all working, and you can hear that it's all moving and clicking correctly. That's very important because we've reassembled the trackpad. The other thing now is to check the actual system information. Here we've got a full charge capacity here, 4,840 milliamp hours, and we have a cycle count. We have a cycle count of 0 and a condition of normal. So that means that this computer is working perfectly well with this particular battery. I can remove the charge cable and I can insert it. We'll get the familiar charging sound. Anyway, big thanks to It's Been Repaired for helping me to do this particular repair for the first time. If you made use of this tutorial, please leave a comment. If you like this video, please like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next repair video.